Welcome to Everything Casual, bringing you original football casual videos from the golden era of the 80s and 90s, right up to current day. Football away day stories and historic clashes between football firms. Subscribe so you don't miss out. We upload videos every week. Birmingham City away. Date with the Zulus, only this date didn't have a nice, lovely ending. We knew the fixtures for the season. We all checked them excitedly the day of their release. Nobody talked about Birmingham City away right up until a couple of weeks before the game. This away day could go two ways. Either we wouldn't have enough numbers to go and have a good go at the Zulus, and we would just get turned over, or we would have enough faces to at least hold our own for a short period of time. I tell the absolute truth in these videos, and people don't like to hear that. I am not going to say things like, "We turned the Zulus over," or "the Zulus ran from us," or even, "We had a good toe-to-toe with the Zulus on their own patch." People have said things like that in their videos, but the honest truth is, our firm wasn't big enough to go to the likes of Birmingham and get a result. I wish it was different, but the truth is that I wasn't really looking forward to facing the Zulus. Sure, we would turn up. It's a pride thing, and even though we didn't have big numbers, we didn't ever shy away from a row, and it gave us all a buzz. But that doesn't mean I was looking forward to coming up against the Zulus, not on their own turf anyway, so I'm not going to lie and give it loads by saying that I was. What I was looking forward to, though, was a stay over in Brum and a good night out. My plan was to go to Birmingham with the football lads, stick around after the game in the pub, and by the train station, to see if anything was happening, or if the boys needed numbers if they came up against the Zulu lads. But then I would get to the hotel, get changed and showered, and meet up in the city centre with my non-casual mates and have a good night. To be fair, we ended up taking a decent number of lads, about 23 of us. Some people might laugh at that number, but I have said many times before we wasn't a big firm, never one of the best. But what we did have was 23 top lads that would always stand their ground, never run, and you could rely on, like a brotherhood, no divs, just proper lads that could row. 23 proper lads like that is actually a decent number, I think. Apart from the likes of West Ham, Millwall, the Zulus, the Red Army, the Soul Crew that could boast over 100 top lads. Apart from those firms, any mob that had 23 top lads that would stand their ground no matter what and have your back, then that would be enough to hold your own against most other firms. So yeah, we took around 23 lads. Everyone was in good spirits on the train. I was nervous. I knew that the Zulus liked to patrol Birmingham New Street Station, waiting for firms to arrive every Saturday, and they would give them a nice old greeting. Was that waiting for us? Time would tell. I was wearing my brand new Benetton jumper, a white one with a green stripe on the front, and the words Benetton in large text. All the lads was giving me banter because it looked like a Celtic garment with the green and white colours. Also, got me a lovely Versace white shirt and some Valentino dark jeans and Patrick Cox shoes ready for a big night out. My aftershave choice was Jean Paul Gaultier Classic. It wasn't that well known at the time but smelt really nice. I remember having a free sample on a shopping trip in London and loved the smell. I liked getting designer clothes before any of our mob even knew about the brands. I was wearing stuff like Vivienne Westwood and stuff like that on a night out before any of the boys. I also remember wearing All Saints before it was a big brand too, the same with aftershave. Anyway, all my garms and aftershave was packed away in my holdall, which was in the overhead compartment above my seat on the train. Our train was just about to pull into Birmingham New Street Station. The noise of our fans started to get louder. A few divs and scarfers singing football songs. A few about Birmingham being a crap hole. I didn't like all that by our scarfers, mainly because they play up on trains and give it loads, stir up bad feeling. Then it's us that face the opposing waiting mobs, never our scarfers. Yet they are the ones giving it loads and singing insults. Our crew never did that. Yeah, we played up on trains, but that was us having a giggle amongst ourselves. We wouldn't sing insults out anything like that. On the train journey, our main lad checked the villa, West Brom and Wolves fixtures to see what other mobs may be heading for Birmingham New Street Station. He said that if Birmingham City played at home, then Villa would have to be playing away. The same as West Brom. They were at home, so Wolves would be away. So he looked at who would be playing West Brom, and it was Crewe Alexander. We wanted a piece of Crewe. Never came up against them before. Not any history or bad blood between us. And to be honest, I didn't know much about their mob. But we fancied it. I absolutely do not mean that to be disrespectful towards Crewe. I hope it didn't come across that way. In fact, I respect any mob that turns up, stands their ground and has a go even if they get turned over. In fact, I probably have more respect for small mobs that turn up and have a go at one of the big boys. But we were confident of a result against the Crewe lads. Hopefully they would be around Birmingham New Street Station around the same time as us. Or maybe in a pub somewhere in the city centre, and we could have a bit of a warm-up before we faced the Zulus. We got off our train, all of us on high alert, no sign of another mob, but there was old Bill scattered around the station. What we did spot was a group of 4 or 5 young kids. They were stood by some big escalator stairs that went up into what looked like the shopping centre. They saw us. We made eye contact. They stared at us for about 10 seconds, talked amongst themselves, then made their way up the escalator stairs and disappeared. I popped into the W.H. Smith shop to get me a chocolate and some bits and bobs to put into my hold-all bag. Ready for the hotel later, a few of the lads went for a piss. No sign of Crewe Alexander boys. Literally the minute we stepped out of the train station, we heard the chant, "Zulus, Zulus," and they just steamed straight into us. We didn't even see them coming, so hit us from the side, some from behind, and a bunch of lads in front of us. It was the famous Zulus, and they looked exactly like I had expected, and what had been described to me, a lot of well-dressed black lads. But the lad I was up against was a well-built white kid, very, very handy with his fists. He had to be a boxer. In fact, I know he was 100%. He done a boxing combo on me and hit me about 4 or 5 times before I even realised what was happening. There was no silly bouncing and jumping up and down. He just came right at me and hit me with the combo. The worst thing was, and I'm not ashamed to say, but I don't even think this was the Zulu main lads. They seemed very young, looked about 18 or 19 years of age. An older senior lads was watching on from about 300 yards away. They didn't get involved. They were just watching us fight and half watching around for the old Bill. The lad I was up against did land 3 or 4 punches, but nothing heavy. I am not giving it loads here, but it didn't really hurt me or damage me. It was more like a cheeky clump. The best one he landed cleanly hit me on the ear. That one did hurt a little and my ear was throbbing. And before I could attack back, he ran back into the crowd. He was fast. I will give him that. It was a minor scuffle, about 10 on 10, and only lasted 1 minute tops. The old Bill got to the scene quickly and the Zulus were gone. The police completely ignored us and went straight for the Zulus, especially trying to catch the younger ones. 2 of the old Bill grabbed one of the young Zulus by the neck and slammed him to the ground and really roughed him up. They were massively out of order, and some of our scarfers that saw the whole fight started shouting at the old Bill to let the kid go. We regrouped, and I told the lads I was going to take my stuff to my hotel if we had another run-in with the Zulus. I could potentially lose or damage all my clothes and gear. Plus, I wanted to just get some ice or cold water on my ear. So I told them I would meet up with them in about 40 minutes, or quicker if possible. I was staying in a hotel called the Novotel, I think it was. It was in a place called Broad Street. It wasn't too far from the train station. I had been to Birmingham lots of times before, apart from London and Manchester. It was one of my favourite places to go shopping with my missus, so I knew where I was going. I got to the hotel and checked in, had a look in the mirror, and my ear was red and swollen. I had a little cut above my eye, in my eyebrow, but it was tiny and not noticeable. I jumped into the shower and freshened up. I probably took longer than I should. I really hoped nothing had happened with the lads whilst I was in the hotel. A police spotter knew of our main lad and weirdly told us where the Zulus was and encouraged us to go and face them. Honestly, It's like they wanted to use us as bait for them to catch the Zulus. You could tell by the way they talked about the Zulus. It sounded like they wanted them really bad. He said that he was fully aware that we had it off with the Zulus as soon as we got off the train, and said that the police had watched the whole thing and that they could have nicked us if they wanted, and that they nicked one of our main lads because they had to. They couldn't let us get away with having a row and not nick anyone, and that we... Lucky they didn't nick more, but he wanted us to go and face the Zulus. He was saying stupid stuff like, if we go to their pub now, we would have a chance because not all their main lads was there yet, and most had banning orders, and that they had already nicked a lot of them. So if we wanted a result against them, now was the time to strike. Sounded weird to me and like some sort of setup. He also confirmed that it wasn't the main Zulus that we had come up against, and it was just their youth toying with us for some sort of test. That's what he said. Don't know if it was the truth or he was just winding us up to face the Zulus. I have no idea, but it just all sounded like a setup. The way they talked about the Zulus was a disgrace, by the way. One of our main lads told the spotter to go and F himself and to do his own dirty work and stop taking us for mugs. He then threatened again to nick us. He was joined by more police officers, and the second they joined him, he stopped encouraging us, and the conversation took a complete U-turn. The other old Bill said that they were going to escort us to St. Andrews, the Birmingham ground. The spotter said to them, "Yeah, I was just telling them that we are going to escort them to the ground." That made me chuckle. Our lad tried to call the spotter out and said that he had changed his story. The other coppers raised their batons as a warning. We got the escort to the ground. The police walked us past a pub near to the ground, and the Zulus was all standing outside the pub. Must have been 300 of them easily. They wasn't even bothered about us. Didn't try and get at us through the escort. Didn't shout insults. It was just like we were nothing to them and not worth their time, which is probably the bigger insult. But they looked impressive. The best I had ever seen. The game itself was pretty boring. I really thought it would turn nasty for us outside the ground after the game, especially walking past that pub. It was on a long straight road. It was opposite a pub called the Dubliner. I always remember that name as one of our lads was Irish. Everyone mingled in up that long road, and to be fair, it went without incident. The Zulus didn't seem to be around. We walked through a big market. It mainly had fruit and veg stalls, some stalls selling sweets and chocolate, some selling curtains and materials, but it was a big market. Got through there and headed back to Birmingham New Street. The lads wasn't going to have a drink in the city centre. They just wanted to get the train home. Fine by me. I would just go to my hotel, get changed, and meet up with my non-casual clubbing mates. We got to this big ramp on a slope, and we got ambushed again. Only it wasn't the youth this time. I saw this huge built black guy just fly in fists going everywhere. They steamed into us for the second time of the day. We stood our ground and fought back. We were all stood cramped close together on the ramp. Fists flying everywhere. It was difficult to see who was who. You certainly didn't have the luxury of time to stand back and identify people. You just had to throw punches and hope for the best. To be fair, they were easy to identify anyway. As we were fighting, you could hear that Zulu chant by the bystanders. This was actually right in the shopping area, and families were running and screaming. I landed a few punches and also took a few punches. The last one caught me in the side and winded me. We were losing this battle. They were everywhere. We were boxed in. It could have turned very ugly. But just at the right time we heard sirens. Police jumped in, smacking anyone they could. We all ran, us and the Zulus. They headed back towards the market, and we made off by the train station. We were battered and bruised, I will be honest. They turned us over. They just had too many numbers, and every single one of them proper lads. The one at the front was like a black god, built like an ox. The one I battled was a smallish young-looking black guy. It was an experience, but we got off lightly. They even held back because we had a small number. Most of them was just looking out for the old Bill. I really do have a lot of respect for the Zulus. I have never ever seen the police so hell-bent on either nicking them or trying to beat them. They had a couple of hundred lads that day and only unleashed a small number of them on us. I got the impression that if we had more numbers, or were a major firm, then more of them would have joined in. But they didn't need to against us, so they didn't. Fair play to them, they could have annihilated us, but they held back because of our small numbers. I respect that. I walked back to the train station with the lads and said my goodbyes, but the night was still young for me, and I was in a party mood. I got back to the hotel and met up with my non-casual mates, who had also been to the game, but had no interest in the football casual lifestyle whatsoever. But they are a naughty bunch, just in a different way, especially a lad I class as my best mate. Let's call him Shallow Hal. Yes, if you have seen the film, he is named after that character, but I will tell you all about him later. But this set of lads like to party hard, and everything that comes with it. We all got some food on Broad Street, then done all the bars and pubs. My favourite one was called The Pitcher and the Piano. A nightmare getting served. It took ages, but the place was buzzing. We got talking to a group of birds from Dudley, very friendly, but then again, I put Brummies right up there with Geordies and Scousers, for how friendly and welcoming they are. Also, very down to earth. The one I got talking to was an absolute darling. She was a teaching assistant. They told us they were heading to a place called Baker's next, and asked us to tag along. We obliged. There was a good crowd in that place, good music, and the flirting got more intense. One of my mates was already kissing one of the group of girls on the dance floor. We all moved on to a place called God's Kitchen. The name made me giggle, but the girls said it was the best place to go in Brum at the time. Massive queue to get in. As we were lining up and sharing banter with the girls, the doormen walked up and down the queue, checking the partygoers out, looking for people they knew they wouldn't be letting in, I suppose. I could swear blind that one of the bouncers was one of the Zulus that we had a toe-to-toe with earlier, smallish black guy, but well built. I didn't say a word to him just in case he recognised me and turned me away from the club. Nothing worse than when you are the one that gets turned away from a club, and you are with a group of people that really want to go to that club. So I kept my head down, but I'm about 85% sure it was him. We got inside. I couldn't believe how many people were in that club. We were all having a good time. My mate disappeared with the bird he was kissing in Baker's. Didn't see him again all night. It ended up with me, the teaching assistant, her best friend, and my mate, Shallow Hal. Now, I really don't mean to be disrespectful here, but my girl was quality, but her friend she was left with was, let's describe her as a 3 out of 10, and she was desperately blocking any moves I was making on my bird. Not a problem though, because I had Shallow Hal on my side. Have you ever seen the film Shallow Hal? Basically, the character called Hal is really choosy when it comes to birds. Anything over 8 stone, and he won't entertain it. Has to be supermodel material too. Until one day he gets hypnotized and can no longer see a girl's size. In fact, he thinks big is beautiful. And he falls in love with a girl that's about 30 stone, basically loves big birds. That's my best mate. Only too happy to take one for the team. The perfect wingman. He just doesn't care. I've seen him get laughed out of nightclubs before for the girls he's pulled. My football lads actually know him through me. Sometimes I have had him with me with the football lads. They love him. They think he's a legend. I've got some great stories about him in Ayia Napa and Ibiza, but that's for another time in another video. Right now, I needed him to take one for the team with the teaching assistant's mate, but she wasn't having any of it. I gave up in the end and was just honest and said, "Your mate obviously isn't going to let you come back to the hotel with me." The girl just laughed and said that her mate was always like it, and put it down to her being protective. We swapped numbers and had a kiss outside whilst they were waiting for a taxi home. I am still in touch with her to this day. We met up a few times. Whenever I was in Birmingham, a couple of times her and her mates came up to see us. It was awkward though, because I had a missus, but told her I was single. She would bombard me with calls and texts when I was with my missus. In the end, I would have to just switch my phone off at night. Then some years later, Facebook came along and made things worse. That's when I had to come clean and just tell her that I got back with my ex. But she really is a top girl. And that was my trip to Birmingham. It had a bit of everything. It wouldn't be my last time in Birmingham though, and I have more stories to tell, like when I ended up in a nightclub called Wobble. Probably the dodgiest nightclub I have ever been to, full of moody football lads paranoid and off their face, but that's for another time. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. If you would like to see more, because I have many more stories to tell, then please like this video and click the subscribe logo in the bottom right of this screen. Thanks again and see you next time.